"You need to sleep in your car," my wife Jessica said. Her voice was pure ice. "My real boyfriend is coming over." She wasn't bluffing. She looked right through me, standing there in my janitor's uniform, like I was just a piece of trash to be taken out. She really believed I was just a broke janitor. What she didn't know is that her real boyfriend works for me. And as I checked into my penthouse suite across town, I just waited. At 3 a.m., my phone blew up. 47 missed calls. Then the text, "Please come back." He saw our wedding photo, Googled your name, and ran. "Who are you?" Music Yang Menjanspiracy Dan Penu Tekad Mengambil Ali Sejenak. You want to find out who I am? You want to know what happens when the tables are finally turned? Stick around. This is the story of how I discovered what my wife truly valued. If you believe in karma, and that we all eventually get what we deserve, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Inspiration Seeker, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my position? It was just after 8 p.m. when I walked through the door of our apartment. I say our apartment, but legally it was mine. Bought and paid for in cash. But I'd let her believe it was a generous gift from her successful family to save her the embarrassment of living in a place her janitor husband couldn't possibly afford. I was still in my uniform. It was dark blue, with the alias Leo stitched in white thread right over my heart. It smelled faintly of industrial cleaning chemicals and the cold night air. I'd designed this life carefully. For 3 years, I'd lived as 2 different men. By day, I was LW, the invisible, almost mythical CEO of Walker Capital Holdings, the ghost of Wall Street, as the papers called me. By night, I was Leo, the guy who pushed a broom in the lobby of one of my own financial towers. It was a test to find one genuine person in a world where everyone only saw my net worth. When I met Jessica, I was Leo, a struggling, hard-working guy. She seemed different, warm, not at all obsessed with money. But the illusion of wealth, even her wealth, had changed her. Or maybe it just revealed who she always was. She was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the lights of Manhattan. She was wearing a blood-red dress, the kind that costs more than my entire annual salary. She didn't even turn around when the door clicked shut. "Don't bother taking your boots off," she said. Her reflection in the glass was perfect, cold, and flawless. "You can't stay tonight." I sighed, playing the part of the tired husband one last time. "Rough day, Jess." "It's fine, I can just take the couch." She laughed. It was a short, ugly sound. "The couch. Chad and I might use the couch. I can't have you shuffling around in the living room." She finally turned, her eyes scanning my uniform with pure, unfiltered disgust. I said, "You can't stay. Chad is coming over." Chad Bradford, a mid-level, arrogant broker from my primary holding firm. The guy she'd been having lunch with for 6 months. I knew exactly who he was. I'd read his performance reviews. They weren't good. "My real boyfriend," she added, twisting the knife. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. "So where am I supposed to go?" I asked, keeping my voice flat, tired. She actually shrugged. "Sleep in your car." "I don't care," she said, waving a hand in my direction. "I just want you gone before he gets here. I don't want him smelling that." She motioned to my uniform. "You're embarrassing." This was it. The final data point. The experiment was over. I looked at her one last time, really looked at the woman I'd married, the woman I'd tried to build a real life with. And I felt nothing. Just quiet resolution. "Okay, Jess," I said softly. I grabbed my keys, the keys to my battered 2012 Ford Focus, from the crystal bowl by the door. She didn't know about the other key fob in my pocket. I didn't take a pillow. I didn't take a change of clothes. I just walked out the door of the apartment I paid for, leaving her to prepare for the man I employed. She didn't even say goodbye. She was already texting him. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft thud, sealing me in the mirrored cage. I didn't go down to the public lobby. I pressed my thumb to a small, unmarked sensor hidden just beneath the P1 button. The panel beeped, and a new button, SG, lit up in a cool white. Subgarage. The elevator descended past the noisy public parking levels, past the foundations of the building, into a silent, climate-controlled vault. The doors opened not onto concrete, but onto polished black marble. My Ford Focus was parked upstairs in stall 34B, a prop for the character of Leo. But down here, this was my reality. There, under a single spotlight, sat my Bentley Mulsanne. It wasn't flashy. It was old money black, a rolling fortress of quiet, understated power. It was the exact opposite of the life Jessica thought I led. I walked to the trunk. It opened with a silent electronic hiss. Inside wasn't a spare tire or jumper cables. It was a custom-fitted wardrobe. I began to undress. The cheap, polyester janitor's uniform fell to the floor, and I stepped out of it, shedding Leo like a second skin. I wasn't just changing clothes. I was recalibrating my entire being. I was shedding the tired, beaten-down man she saw and stepping back into the man I actually was. I pulled out a fresh, crisp white shirt. French cuffs. Then the suit. Tom Ford, bespoke, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe. It felt like armor. As I fastened the silk tie, a perfect Windsor knot, I caught my reflection in the car's dark-tinted window. The tired slump was gone. My posture was straight. My eyes were no longer hollow. They were sharp. The ghost of Wall Street was back. I slid into the driver's seat. The smell of rich leather and polished wood replaced the scent of bleach. I pressed the ignition. The engine didn't roar. It purred, a deep, powerful hum that you felt more than you heard. I picked up my other phone, a military-grade satellite phone secured in the console. One speed dial button. It rang once before she picked up. "Sir." Her voice was crisp, efficient, no matter the hour. Amanda Thorne. My executive assistant and the only other person who knew about both my lives. "Amanda," I said, my voice now back to its normal, commanding tone. "Activate protocol, sunset." There was a half-second pause on the line. She knew exactly what that meant. We had protocols for everything. Sunrise for acquisitions, midnight for security threats. Sunset was for personal severance. The end of an era. "Understood, sir," she replied, "all business. All assets." "Everything," I confirmed, pulling the gear shift into drive. "Liquidate all assets tied to Jessica Walker. Revoke access to all accounts, all properties, and all club memberships. Have the divorce papers drawn up and delivered by 7 a.m. tomorrow. She's to be left with nothing but what she came into this marriage with." "Which was?" Amanda asked. "A gym membership and 2 suitcases of clothes," I said. "Consider it done, sir." The call ended. I put the phone away. As the massive steel gate to my private exit began to roll open, revealing a tunnel that led directly onto the FDR drive, I had only one thought. Jessica wanted me to sleep in my car. Fine. I'd just sleep in my other car, the one driving me to my tower. The Bentley moved through the Manhattan traffic like a ghost. I wasn't speeding. I was simply moving without obstacle. I took the FDR drive up the east side, the city lights reflecting off the hood like scattered diamonds. 15 minutes later, I wasn't pulling into a public garage. I turned into a private tree-lined driveway on the Upper East Side, one hidden from the street by a 20-foot-high wrought iron gate. The gate opened without me even slowing down. Walker Tower. My tower. My security team, discreet and armed, nodded as I passed through the fortified subterranean entrance. This wasn't a garage. It was a showroom. The elevator I entered here wasn't stainless steel. It was paneled in dark 100-year-old oak, and it required a separate key and my thumbprint. It was a straight shot to the top. The doors opened not with a ding, but with a silent hiss, revealing the great room of my penthouse. It was silent. The only light came from the city itself, flooding in through 30-foot-high floor-to-ceiling windows. This place was the exact opposite of the apartment I just left. Jessica had decorated that place in sterile whites, sharp glass, and chrome. Cold, modern, and desperate to impress. This was me. Walls lined with books. Dark hardwood floors. Furniture that valued comfort and history over fleeting trends. It smelled of old leather, cedar, and the faint, clean scent of high-altitude air. I walked across the room, my hard-bottomed shoes clicking on the floor, the only sound in the cavernous space. I stood at the window, which offered a perfect sweeping 180-degree view of Central Park. And there, across the dark expanse of the park, I could see it. The high-rise building I had just left. I could even make out the approximate window of my old apartment. Just a tiny, bright square in the distance. I pictured the scene, Chad arriving. Jessica fawning over him, laughing that high-pitched, fake laugh she used when she wanted something. She'd offer him a drink, probably the $1,000 bottle of scotch I had bought, which she'd claim she picked out. I turned away from the window and walked to my bar. I poured 3 fingers of Macallan 25 into a heavy crystal glass. No ice. I sat in a dark leather Eames chair, facing the park. Facing her window. I didn't check my stocks. I didn't turn on the news. I just sat, swirling the whiskey, watching that distant light. Jessica wanted me to sleep in my car. She thought I was a nobody. She thought her new man was an alpha, a Wall Street shark. She had no idea that she was just a goldfish in my bowl, and her shark was just another employee. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't running. I was in my home. All I had to do now was wait. The trap was set. The clock was ticking. And at 3 a.m., I knew my phone would light up. I checked my watch. A Patek Philippe Calatrava. Leo wore a $30 Timex. It was 9:30 p.m. Right on cue. Back across the park in my apartment, the scene I'd been anticipating was finally playing out. I didn't need to be there to see it. I knew these 2 people inside and out. The doorbell would ring. Jessica would have practically run to it, smoothing down the front of that red dress, putting on her brightest, most artificial smile. And in would walk Chad Bradford. I pictured him perfectly. Hair slicked back with too much product, flashing his aggressively white veneers. He'd be wearing a suit that was just a little too tight, designed to show off the gym time he clearly logged on his Instagram. He'd walk in not like a guest, but like a conqueror, holding a bottle of Dom Perignon, which he'd charged to his corporate expense account, an account I ultimately paid. He'd give her a showy, performative kiss. "Nice place, Jess," he'd say, looking around with an appraiser's eye. "This view is killer. Your husband must be doing, well, whatever it is he does." This was the moment she'd been waiting for. I could hear her laugh, that high-pitched, condescending giggle. "Ugh, him. God, don't even talk about Liam," she'd say, taking the champagne from him and leading him to the window. "He didn't pay for any of this. This was all my family. Thank God." She'd pour the drinks, her back to him, before turning around. "You're not going to believe this, Chad. It's just so embarrassing." "What is?" he'd ask, already amused. "My husband," she'd say, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He's a janitor." Chad would probably choke on his drink. "A what? Like a superintendent?" "No," she'd laugh. "Worse. A janitor. A nighttime sanitation technician. Or whatever he calls it. He mops floors. He empties trash cans. He's pathetic." I took a slow sip of my whiskey. The burn was satisfying. "And here's the best part," she'd continue, moving closer to him. "The absolute most humiliating part. He works at your building. Walker Capital. He probably scrubs the toilets on your floor." I could see Chad's face. The smug, superior grin. He'd throw his head back and laugh. He was sleeping with his janitor's wife, in the janitor's apartment. He was the king of the world. The alpha. "That," he'd say, "is the saddest thing I've ever heard. Where is he now, anyway?" "Oh, I told him to sleep in his car," Jessica would sneer, clinking her glass against his. "I couldn't have him stinking up the place." They were toasting their own brilliance, toasting my failure, laughing at the man who signs their paychecks. The irony was so thick, I could almost taste it. But the laughter wouldn't last, because in his smug little survey of the room, his eyes would eventually land on the mantelpiece. on a single silver-framed photo that Jessica, in her arrogance, had forgotten all about. Back in my penthouse, I swirled the last of the whiskey in my glass. The ice had long since melted. This was the moment, the pivot, the exact second the universe would bend back towards the truth. I pictured Chad, feeling triumphant. He'd be strolling around the living room, champagne flute in hand, basking in his own perceived superiority. He'd be admiring my art, judging my furniture. And then he'd see the mantelpiece. It was lined with photographs. Most were of Jessica. Jessica at a gala that I funded. Jessica on a yacht in the Hamptons, my yacht. Jessica with her parents. But right in the center, in a heavy sterling silver frame, was our wedding photo. She kept it out because she looked stunning in her Vera Wang gown. She'd told me once that she kept it to remind herself that even she could make a mistake. In the photo, she is radiant, smiling for the cameras. And I am beside her. I wasn't Leo that day. I was just Liam. I'd worn a simple, impeccably tailored black tuxedo. I wasn't smiling broadly. It was a small, reserved smile. But my eyes were clear, focused. They were the eyes of the man I am, not the man I was pretending to be. Chad would have glanced at it, dismissed it, and then done a double take. He'd stop. The smug grin would freeze. He'd lean in, squinting, then set his glass down and pick up the heavy frame. Jessica, annoyed that his attention was no longer on her, would sigh. What is it? Oh, that's our wedding day. I know, I look amazing, right? The dress was a fortune. But Chad wouldn't be looking at her. He'd be staring at my face. This, he'd say, his voice a little tight. This is your husband? This is the janitor. Yes, that's him, she'd say, irritated. Cleaned up surprisingly well, didn't he? Now put it down, Chad. He's depressing. But Chad wouldn't put it down. His mind would be racing, trying to connect the dots. He's seen this face. But where? It wasn't in the locker room. It wasn't in the cafeteria. It was somewhere else. Somewhere important. Maybe on the company intranet? An employee of the month bulletin? No, that wasn't it. The name. Walker. A very common name. But this face. What did you say his full name was? Chad would ask, his voice losing its confident swagger. Liam. Liam Walker, Jessica would snap, finally sensing the shift in the room. Why? What is wrong with you? Why are you suddenly so obsessed with my pathetic husband? Liam. Walker, Chad would repeat, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. Walker, as in. Walker, capital. He'd look at Jessica, searching for any sign that this was a joke. But she'd just look confused. What? No. He works at Walker Capital. He doesn't. He's a janitor. But the seed of terror was planted. It was a 1 in a billion chance. A coincidence. It had to be. But what if it wasn't? He was sleeping with this woman in this apartment, insulting her husband, who had the same last name as the firm's mysterious, reclusive, and legendary founder. He'd set the photo down, his hand trembling slightly. I need to check something, he'd mutter, pulling out his phone. He'd ignore Jessica's annoyed, Chad, what are you doing? His fingers would fly across the screen, opening the Google search bar. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my whiskey. It was 9:46 p.m. I pictured the scene. The blue light of Chad's phone illuminating his face, his smugness evaporating with every passing millisecond. He wouldn't have just typed Liam Walker. It's too common. He'd be specific. He would have typed Liam Walker Capital. The search results would have loaded instantly. There would be no Facebook profile of a janitor. No bowling league scores. The very first link, the one at the top, would be from Forbes, The Ghost of Wall Street, Liam Walker's $9.8 billion empire. I can see him freezing, his thumb hovering over the screen. It's a mistake. A coincidence. It has to be. Some other guy with the same name. Then, he'd tap the Images tab. His world would end. It wasn't a gallery of a man in a blue uniform. It was an endless scroll of me. Me, in the exact same tuxedo from the wedding photo, shaking hands with the mayor at a charity ball. Me, in a sharp gray suit on the cover of Fortune, headlined, "The Man Who Bought Wall Street." Me, stepping out of a helicopter. Me, standing next to his boss's boss at the last quarterly meeting. He'd start to sweat. His breathing would get shallow. He'd scroll faster, frantically, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying speed. He'd see articles about Walker Tower, the building he'd always dreamed of just seeing inside. He'd see the corporate structure. Walker Capital Holdings, the parent company of the firm he worked for. And at the very top, the founder, the owner, the CEO. Liam Walker, LW. The W didn't stand for William or Walter. It stood for Walker. He wasn't sleeping with a janitor's wife. He was sleeping with the wife of the man who, with a single phone call, could have him blacklisted from the entire financial industry. Forever. The man who owned the building he was standing in. The man whose toilets he probably thought I cleaned. Chad. What is it? Jessica would be saying, her voice laced with annoyance. You look like you've seen a ghost. Did you find his MySpace page? He wouldn't answer. He'd drop his phone. It would clatter onto the hardwood floor. He'd stumble back, knocking into a side table. He'd look at the wedding photo on the mantel, then at the Forbes article glowing on his dropped phone, then at Jessica. His face would be a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. Chad would stammer, pointing at the photo. That's LW. That's the ghost. Jessica would just stare at him, completely lost. L what? What are you talking about? That's Liam. My loser husband. The janitor. I can see the look in Chad's eyes. The moment he realizes that she doesn't know. The moment he realizes what a catastrophic, career-ending, life-destroying mistake he just made. He'd look at her, his voice barely a whisper. You absolute. You idiot. Across the park, I raised my glass in a silent toast to an empty room. The show was reaching its climax. For Chad, this wasn't just an "oh, I messed up" moment. This was a "my life is over" apocalypse. Every fantasy he'd built, his superiority, his status, his future, had just been incinerated by a single Google search. He wouldn't have even picked up his phone. He'd scramble for his jacket, which was draped elegantly over one of my dining chairs. His hands would be fumbling with the sleeves, his $5,000 Rolex catching the light. Chad, what is going on? Jessica would be demanding, her voice finally rising from annoyance to genuine confusion. You're scaring me. Scaring you. I can hear him shouting, his voice cracking. He'd be stuffing his wallet and keys into his pockets, looking at the apartment door like it was the only exit from a burning building. I have to go. I have to go now. Go. You just got here. She'd shriek, grabbing his arm. Tell me what you saw. He'd rip his arm away from her, his eyes wide with a terror she had never seen before. He's not a janitor, you moron. He'd finally scream, his slick facade completely gone. He's LW. Liam Walker. He owns the entire company. He owns this building. He owns me. Jessica would just freeze, the words not making any sense. Owns you? What are you talking about? He's Leo. He mops floors. He's not Leo. Chad would be at the door, frantically working the deadbolt. He's Liam Walker. The ghost. He's a billionaire. He could end me with one text message. He could have me ruined by morning. And you had me here, insulting him, in his own apartment. The truth, delivered in a panicked shriek, would finally hit her. But not the full truth. Just the part that mattered to Chad. Danger. But he's sleeping in his car. She'd whisper, her mind unable to bridge the gap between the loser she'd kicked out and the phantom billionaire Chad was describing. He's not in his car. Chad would laugh, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. He's probably in his tower, watching us on a hidden camera right now. God, I'm done. I'm so done. He wouldn't give her a chance to reply. He wouldn't offer an apology or a goodbye. He wouldn't even look at her. He'd yank the door open and sprint down the hallway, not even waiting for the elevator, probably hammering the button for the stairs. He wasn't a suitor. He was prey, fleeing a predator he hadn't known was in the room. He'd leave her, standing alone in the doorway. The expensive champagne would be going flat on the counter. The red dress would suddenly feel like a cheap costume. She would be left in total echoing silence with only one piece of information. The janitor she'd just humiliated was Liam Walker, and she had no idea what that truly meant. From my vantage point in the penthouse, I couldn't see the flashing elevator light in her building, but I could imagine it. Chad would be long gone, leaving nothing but the scent of his expensive cologne and a lingering echo of panic. Jessica would be left standing in the silence. For a long minute she would just stand there, frozen. Her mind would be trying to process it. Billionaire. Owns the company. LW. It was impossible. It was a joke. It had to be a cruel, elaborate prank. But Chad's terror, that was real. I can see her walking, slowly at first, back into the living room, as if in a trance. She'd look at the wedding photo. The man in that photo was the same man she'd told to sleep in his car. The man she'd called pathetic. Then she'd see Chad's phone, still glowing on the floor where he'd dropped it. She'd pick it up. Her hands would be trembling. The Forbes article would still be on the screen. Liam Walker's $9.8 billion empire. She'd stare at my picture. The man on the cover of Fortune. The man on Forbes. The man at the gala. It was me. There was no denying it. The phone in her hand would feel like it was burning. This was the first domino. She'd drop Chad's phone and scramble for her new rose gold iPhone. She'd do her own search. Liam Walker. She'd see everything. Walker Tower. Walker Capital Holdings. The charities. The boards. The articles not just about my wealth, but about my reclusiveness. The ghost of Wall Street. A man so private he could walk into one of his own buildings as a janitor and no one would ever know, unless he wanted them to. The blood would drain from her face. It wasn't just that I was rich. It was that she'd had it all. The penthouse she thought was her family's, the cars, the clubs, the black cards. It was all me. And she had, with her own two hands, just thrown it all in the trash for a mid-level broker. The panic would set in. A suffocating, ice-cold wave of it. She'd realize what she'd done. She'd realize what she'd lost. Her fingers would fumble as she tried to dial my number. The number for Leo, my burner phone. I watched my other phone, the cheap one, as it lit up on the marble coffee table in front of me. Jessica flashed on the screen. I didn't silence it. I just let it ring. Music dimuli logi. Nada during Pansel yang beryalang. Dikamper dengan suara sinar yang panik dan berdengang. It rang once. Twice. 10 times. It stopped, then immediately started again. Back in her apartment, she'd be pacing. Pick up, pick up, pick up Leo. Liam. God, pick up. She'd be crying now. Not tears of remorse, but tears of pure terrified loss. Call number 5. Call number 12. Call number 23. She'd be hyperventilating, checking the status of her credit cards on her banking app. Declined. She'd try to call the private car service I provided. Account suspended. Call number 31. Call number 40. I just watched it vibrate, the screen a flashing beacon of her desperation. It was 2:59 a.m. She was unraveling. She'd lost everything in the span of 3 hours. Finally, after the 47th unanswered call, the ringing stopped. The silence in my penthouse was absolute. A second later, the screen lit up one last time. A text message. I picked it up. It read, Liam Kumahan Angkat. Chad Pergi. Dia melihat fotomu. Dia bilang kau Bosnia. Tolong kembali aku tidak mengerti. Siapa kau? I read the text. I set the phone back down. I took another sip of my drink, the ice long since melted. I didn't reply. I just waited for the sun to come up, because at 7 a.m., the real sunset protocol would be complete. The sun began to bleed over the East River, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and fiery orange. I'd been up all night, not in a panic like she was, but in quiet contemplation. I had showered, the hot water washing away the last figurative grime of Leo. I was in a fresh navy blue Brioni suit, sipping a cup of black coffee, watching the city wake up. My phone, my real phone, buzzed on the table. A single text from Amanda. Package is en route. ETA 7 a.m. Right on time. Across the park, I knew Jessica hadn't slept. I pictured her, a complete wreck. She'd probably be huddled on that expensive white couch, still in last night's red dress. Her makeup would be a smeared, tragic mask. Her phone, now a useless brick, would be clutched in her hand. Every sound in the hallway would have made her jump, her heart torn between hoping it was me and dreading it was me. At 7 a.m. on the dot, the doorbell would have chimed. She'd have flown to the door, a desperate, pre-rehearsed apology on her lips. She would be expecting me. The husband. Maybe the pathetic Leo she could bully, or the powerful Liam she could beg. She would have been ready to cry, to bargain, to scream, to do whatever it took. But when she pulled the door open, it wasn't me. Standing in the hallway were two men. They were not angry. They were not emotional. They were, in their own way, far more terrifying. They were my personal legal team, the men who handled my multi-billion-dollar acquisitions, the men who made problems disappear. They were both in identical, severe dark suits, holding identical leather briefcases. Mrs. Walker? The older one, Mr. Harrison, would have said. His voice was polite, but utterly devoid of warmth. Liam. Where is Liam? She'd ask, her voice hoarse. I need to talk to him. We are here on behalf of Mr. Liam Walker, Harrison would continue, as if she hadn't spoken. We have some documents for you. He'd open his briefcase and hand her a thick manila envelope. What is this? Those are divorce papers, madam. Mr. Walker is filing on the grounds of adultery. Your signature is not required to proceed. Her world would have tilted. Divorce? No, he can't. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake. I'll tell him. The second lawyer, the younger one, would have stepped forward. In this second envelope, you will find a summary of your financial standing. As of 3:01 a.m. this morning, all credit lines, joint accounts, and access cards registered in your name have been permanently suspended. And finally, Harrison would add, this apartment is the sole and separate property of Mr. Walker. This is a formal notice to vacate. You have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings. 24 hours. She'd shriek. I can't. Where am I supposed to go? We were instructed, Harrison would say, checking his watch, that your personal belongings consist of 2 suitcases of clothing and a gym membership, which was, I'm afraid, also cancelled. A security detail will be here in 1 hour to oversee your packing and escort you from the premises. He would have nodded curtly. You have been served. Good day, Mrs. Walker. They wouldn't have waited for her response. They would have just turned, in perfect unison, and walked back to the elevator, leaving her standing in the doorway with the papers in her hand. The full, crushing, irreversible weight of her actions would finally be settling in. She hadn't just lost a real boyfriend. She had lost an entire universe. I finished my coffee and placed the empty cup in the sink. It was 8 a.m. Harrison would be gone, and the security team would be in place. I could have just left it at that. I could have gone to my office, started my day, and never seen her again, letting the lawyers handle the cleanup. But I needed to do this. Not for her, but for me. I needed to turn the page myself. I didn't take the Bentley. I took the elevator down to the main lobby of my tower, something I rarely did. I walked out the front doors, past my own statue, and into the morning light. My personal driver was waiting in a black, unassuming Maybach. The 72nd Street building, sir, I said. The ride was silent. We pulled up to the curb just as the first of the morning doormen was starting his shift. I stepped out, And this time, I didn't use the staff entrance. I walked right through the main lobby. The doorman, who had seen Leo the janitor shuffle in and out for 3 years, did a double take. He saw the suit, the car, the posture. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I gave him a simple, polite nod and walked past him to the elevators. I didn't go up. I waited. A few minutes later, the elevator dinged. The doors opened. There she was. She wasn't the composed, icy woman from last night. She was a ghost. Her face was swollen, her eyes red and raw. The expensive red dress was wrinkled, a sad relic of the night she thought she'd won. Beside her were 2 large suitcases, the exact 2 she'd arrived with 3 years ago. 2 men from my security team stood on either side of her, polite but firm. Her head was down, staring at the marble floor. But then she must have sensed me. Her head snapped up. Her eyes met mine. In that one look I saw it all. Shock, fear, desperation, and a frantic last-second flicker of hope. She actually thought she could fix this. "Liam," she cried out, her voice cracking. She lunged forward, but the security guard gently but firmly put an arm out, stopping her. "Liam, please," she begged, tears streaming down her ruined makeup. "Thank God. You have to tell them. It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. I love you. I've always loved you. It was never real with him, it was nothing. Please, Liam, don't do this." I just looked at her. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't even feel pity. I just felt closure. The experiment was finally, truly over. I walked slowly towards her until I was just a few feet away. I let the silence hang in the lobby for a moment. Then I spoke. My voice was quiet, clear and cold. "You're right about one thing, Jessica," I said. "It wasn't real." Her sobs hitched. "Hoping. You loved what you thought you could get from Chad. The status. The thrill." I motioned around the opulent lobby, the one I owned. All I ever wanted was someone who valued me when I had nothing. Someone who would see the man, not the uniform. I paused, then delivered the final sentence. "You told me to sleep in my car," I said. "I won't tell you the same. But I wish you the best of luck figuring out where you'll sleep tonight." I didn't wait for her reply. I didn't look back as her desperate sobs turned into a raw, animalistic wail. I just buttoned my suit jacket, turned, and walked out the glass doors into the bright, clear light of my city and my new life.